So without wasting any more time, I would like to invite our first speaker on behalf of the Baltic Ports Organization. I would like to introduce Mr. Bogdan Ołdakowski to give us a keynote speech on what is the latest of these new upcoming alternative fuels. What is the latest on the LNG, which has been introduced for a while and supported by Baltic Ports Organization among the ports in the Baltic. So Bogdan, the stage is yours. If you're ready, please.
Emil, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to present you some thoughts about next decade, and particularly I'll be speaking about what the impact of the climate reduction policies are for the shipping sector and for the ports. I'm just starting. Can you see my presentation now?
Yes, we can see your presentation, please.
Okay, this is great. So first of all, I'll talk about so-called new era of actions against climate change, and then I focus a bit on shipping. However, I must say I'm not the really shipping expert. I'm more a port sector. So after that, I go to the port sector and come and end with some conclusions. Just one slide about Baltic Ports Organization. We were established quite a long time ago, in fact 30 years ago, and we are recently about 50 members from all countries around the Baltic Sea. And I have a pleasure to lead the office of the Baltic Ports Organization for more than 10 years now. But let's go to the main subject. The main subject is, of course, the policies that are focusing on reduction of greenhouse gases to atmosphere. And first, let me start with European Green Deal. The European Green Deal is a policy that was introduced, I think, about 2 years ago, together with a new commission that was enforced at the same time. So it focused on the reduction of greenhouse gases, and it says that Europeans should become climate neutral in year 2050. And quite recently, in December last year, the Commission said that we should reduce in Europe the emissions by 55% in year 2030. So it is a very ambitious goals. Moreover, they said that European economy shouldn't be based on fossil fuels. Well, this is, I have to say, very, very ambitious goals, and the question would be how to meet these goals. But let's go on. You can see now the other piece of European policy is EU mobility strategy, and then in this respect they said that by year 2030 the inland waterways and short sea shipping should be increased by 25% and even more by year 2050. And then they also said that zero-emission ocean-going vessels should be also ready for market quite recent, in a short distance from now, in year 2030. Well, again, very, very ambitious goals. Then we do have this Paris Agreement that was signed in year 2015, and it was more based on the temperature. So they said that all the countries who signed the agreement, and within these countries there was Russia, but also China, all these countries should focus to limit the increase of average temperature not more than 2% comparing to the pre-industrial time. And after that, in year 2018, IMO said that the total emissions from shipping should be decreased by 50% in year 2050 comparing to year 2008. So again, another very ambitious goals. And then quite recently, last week, we had a so-called Biden Climate Summit. And if you follow this summit, you could see that there was a series of declarations from a number of world leaders. And among them, Biden declared that US will reduce the emissions by 50% by year 2030. Of course, it is completely change of the policy from US comparing to the previous president. But at the same summit, you could hear another declarations from Canada, from China, even from Japan. Also, Vladimir Putin said something, but maybe it's not that important at the moment. So let me go on. So all these strategies are very, very ambitious. And of course, shipping and port sector are part of the world. So shipping companies, ports, sooner or later must find some role in this development. And I just want to show you a few examples from the shipping sector of initiatives, not maybe only by single shipping companies, but by the sector as such. And quite recently, there was the establishment of so-called Center for Zero Carbon Shipping from Maersk, McKinney, Moller, and it is based in Copenhagen. And if you look at the partners, so you could find that there are really big names, big brands in shipping, but also the suppliers for shipping. So simply, their role is to assist or to give the directions for shipping, how they should meet these goals. Of course, one of the main challenges is the technology. What kind of the propulsion, what kind of fuel shipping industry must use in the future. And then another initiative in Asia, again, big names, Samsung among them, but also Lloyd's Registers. They focused to build ammonium fuel tanker, but it's just the first project, and they declared that they will work further to develop technology for climate neutral shipping. And then one of the examples from Maersk quite recently declared that they will design and put into the operation a first zero emission ship, and they said it will be a box ship, the container ship, not too big, 2000 TEU, and she will be operating in intra-regional market, maybe in Europe, and it will be fueled by methanol and also as a dual fuel system by so-called very low sulfur fuel, sulfur fuel. Yes, and then what next? Let me now go to the port sector. And if you see this graph, this is the power generation in Europe. You could see that all these reduction policies, climate reduction policies, will change the energy mix in Europe. So you could see that the coal and the oil, the gas, will be disappearing almost from energy production in Europe. Instead, there will be a renewable energy, but also quite substantial part will be produced from nuclear sources. So what that means, this is a clear picture that we could expect that coal, oil, and gas probably will be maybe not disappearing, but the volumes in ports will be much lower. So those ports who are profiling on handling natural resources like oil, coal, gas, they have to simply look for another business profile in next decades. And this is more or less the same. Is the demand for coal and oil in different regions in the world. You could see Europe. Europe is a dark blue. So again, a similar picture. So there will be less and less demand for these commodities in Europe, but also in other regions of the world as well. So ports, as they are now traditionally, they are the hubs for natural fuels. They will become more hubs for renewable sources like offshore wind farms, but also they might become a place where so-called green hydrogen would be produced. This is just the example from the Baltic. You could see the picture of a Rønne port, and they just built offshore base for offshore wind farms projects for the Baltic, and I have to say they are quite successful. You know, there are so many projects in offshore industry coming to the Baltic. So simply they did what they expected in a business, and now they are profiting from this development. I know that, of course, there are also such plans in Poland to build offshore wind farms for planned offshore wind farms in the Baltic in Polish waters. Well, you could ask what are the other consequences of this gas emission reduction policies. You could see that, for example, some ports now declaring the goals of the reduction of the emissions, and you can see here just one of them, Port of Helsinki, said that it will be climate neutral by year 2035. And just also quite recently, Port of Tallinn said that they will use only green electricity. So this is just the examples of two ports from the Baltic Sea. And of course, another quite important development is the onshore power supply, and the European Green Deal said clearly that ships that are berthing in European ports must use onshore power supply. That means that quite many European ports must invest in this technology. Probably not in every key, but there will be a massive investments in this particular facilities in coming years, decade, or maybe 2 decades. This is just one of the examples of the onshore power supply in Port of Istad and the Polish ship operated by Unity Line. And then one of the main questions, of course, for the port is, what is the next fuel for ships? And in fact, I had a very interesting talks just recently from this Maersk center from Copenhagen, and they were asking me how Baltic ports were preparing for bunkering of LNG. Well, I said that it took about 10 years to get to the place where we are now, that you can bunker LNG almost in every port in the Baltic. So the question would be, and this is the question from the ports addressed to shipping industry, what is the next fuel for ships? because ports must do their own task. They have to be prepared for that development. And of course, at the moment, there is no clear answer. But I think the next decades will be very interesting for that development. And as I said, it took about 10 years for the ports to get prepared for bunkering of LNG around the Baltic Sea. So coming to the end, very short conclusions. What that means, what all this development, all these policies, and as you can see, supported by world leaders, what that means for maritime transport. I would say that for the shipping is a massive challenge. It's mainly the technology. So what kind of fuel, how you will power ships in the future, and this, of course, will cost money. Probably it will be quite an expensive development. But for ports, I would say maybe the challenge is not as big as for shipping industry. I would say it's rather a change. So ports must adopt to new trends. But if we look at the history, the ports did that lesson, and I gave you just an example of LNG as a new fuel. But then you can expect a bit more challenges, not just one fuel. It will be a harder task, but it will be, I think, for the port sector, much easier than for the shipping sectors. So with this, I would like to end my short presentation. And if you are interested in our work, in our activities, please follow our social media and our newsletters. Emil, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ołdakowski, for an excellent overview of the alternative fuel sector, how they are applied in the Baltic ports, and as well, what is the latest from the European Union programs and supports, and mostly awaited Green Deal.